Guides around the globe and the great beyond, welcome back to another episode of Guy Stuff. I'm your host, Anthony Claiborne, joined by the incomparable
Jonathan SB, all the way from the other side of the planet, Thailand. Man, it's good to be back here with you guys today, brother.
And we are joined today. I am so super stoked to have a fellow musician on. Although this guy, I gotta be honest with you, he makes me want, when I hear him play, he makes me want to burn every guitar I own and never play in public again. It really hurts my feelings how good he is. But
makes me want to take my shirt off. Makes me want to take my shirt off completely.
I keep telling you that the podcast is not a dating service, but for some reason he's
when you hear this dude play, you're just like, oh. You get warm and fuzzy in your heart. You know what I'm saying?
Maybe hold your phone up, but I don't know, with like a light or something. But we're joined by Dave Tweedie, all the way from down under. David, we're so glad to have you with us, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Yeah.
Man, this for you guys that don't know who the amazing Dave Tweedie is. There's a little small known guy that goes around singing some songs through Australia and the world called Guy Sebastian. If you don't know who he is, which if you've been on a rock for the past 10 or 15 years, you might not know who he is. But he has some amazing hit songs out there, and Dave is the mastermind guitarist behind that. When you hear it live or you hear it played, that's Dave in the background just freaking wailing it out, man. Also plays tours with a guy named Gary Pinto. Am I saying his name right? Pinto or Pinto? How do you say it, man?
Pinto, yeah.
Pinto, like the beans, or
the
right?
car.
That cat, if you like old soul music, if you like old soul, like Sam, especially Sam Cooke, although that era of music, man, Gary Pinto is the dude to listen to. Didn't you tell me he got invited to someone's house for their birthday? Who was that you were telling me about there, Dave?
Stevie Wonder's daughter, or Stevie Wonder called up Gary and asked him to come and sing at his daughter's birthday party many years ago. And so Gary rocked up there, and the story goes he didn't have any musicians with him. So he just rocked up to the party and said, I don't have any backing tracks or any musicians. And he looked at Stevie and he said, Stevie, can you play for me? So Stevie had to jump on the piano, and Gary was calling all these Donny Hathaway songs and all these old soul songs, and Stevie Wonder is sitting there playing, just jamming away. They're having a great time. But apparently Stevie Wonder said about Gary Pinto, that's the closest to Donny Hathaway that I've ever heard. And Donny Hathaway is Stevie Wonder's favorite singer.
Wow.
From back in the early soul eras. So, that's a massive, massive thing,
So,
that's amazing.
So this is who Dave, the circle that Dave runs in, way above our pay grade, like tremendously above our pay grade. I'm just happy that Dave would condescend to come hang out with us. All I'm saying,
it was a bit of a stretch,
Oh man,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, John. I was just
go ahead, man. Go ahead.
But you go. No, I was just gonna say real quick, and I'll throw it back over to you. I think David's already hit on something for our guys that is super important in the whole realm of manhood without even realizing it. Guys need to know good music. Guys need to know good music, and like look, I love Johnny Cash. Y'all know I love Johnny Cash, but I don't just mean Johnny Cash. I mean like some of this good old soul music my man's talking about, like stuff like Bill Withers. Like I think I saw a video of you doing some music with a guy who was doing some Bill Withers covers and
there's a good joke about that. How do you turn a duck into Bill Withers? You stick it in the oven until it's Bill Withers.
Oh dang! We're ending the podcast right now. The interview is over. Walk away, Dave. Oh Lord, Jesus in heaven.
That's an Australian joke. I'm just kidding, David. I'm just kidding, bro. John, over to you, boss man.
Oh no, man! This is so. Like me and Dave met quite a few months back now, just hanging out with each other, getting to talk together, getting to spend time with each other. And I had to forgive him a little bit from being Australian. It was kind of weird. It was like talking to like a different, like an alien come down to Earth. It was kind of like that interaction, but we got through it. We I think music bridged that gap of understanding. It's like the scene from A Close Encounters with the Third Kind, where it's like doo doo doo, like with the things beeping.
Yes.
That was how exactly. That's how me and Dave.
You were using me as an example of how to throw someone to the ground at the time.
Speaking of which, how's the rib?
Yeah, man. It literally took like 3 months for my rib to start feeling normal again.
I'm sorry.
He was a little rough on me. He was a little rough.
All his friends. He's not abusive to all his friends.
No,
just the ones he really cares about.
Exactly, the ones I like. And this is honest the truth. You can ask Dave this. I told him, if I don't pick on you, I don't like you. And so I picked on Dave a lot. So Dave, I want you to know, just in case you didn't know, from the time we got to spend together, I really like you, brother. Mostly because, you serenade me. And it was just, you wooed me. You wooed me with your serenation.
I keep telling John, we were talking about this before the show, this is not a dating show. I feel like John's trying to pick up everybody that comes on.
I'm not spitting woo at somebody. I'm not spitting woo. I'm just saying, Dave spit woo at me, man. He was like, let me serenade you. Oh, I play for Guy Sebastian. And I'm like, oh, this dude's good.
In all seriousness, actually, John, again, another great point. It is cool. It is okay for guys to appreciate beautiful music.
Tell you, man.
They should. I mean, it's kind of funny. It's like the same dudes who will be inspired by like the Braveheart soundtrack. You take that music and divorce it from the movie, and all of a sudden they're like, I don't like that mess, man. You were just listening to it. People were just being stabbed by it, and you're okay with it then.
It gave it context. It gave it context.
Beautiful music is very guy related. It's important.
It is, man.
Yeah,
it is. I think that's one of the things that that does bridge a lot of gaps. Is that like listening to good music? Like how many times do you have a friend? And I'm a country. I like some country music. I don't like new country a lot. I like old country. Not like old, not like Hank Williams Sr. Old. But I like, Junior up, late 70s. Yeah, Bo Cephas up to about 93. That era to late George Strait. That was my jam.
You know what happens if you play a country song backwards, right, John? You get your dog back, you get your truck back, you get your wife back. Sorry, had to.
And you become sober again.
You become sober. That's great.
Man, y'all, why
if
y'all
you are
messing with the
listening
country?
to this and not watching it on the YouTube channel right now, John is wearing an authentic Red Man tobacco hat.
Chewing tobacco. I remember my granddaddy wearing this hat. My papa wore it every day, and I had two of them. I was in my stepdad's closet. I don't know, last year, and I was cleaning out his closet.
Are you still in the closet, John?
I came out the closet last year. Thank you very much. When I got the hat. The hat. You can ask Anthony if he's Anyway, you got me all flustered. So
becoming an intervention.
Exactly. So tell me about your experience. Well, I found this hat, right? So I'm in his closet, and it was not that kind of closet. It was an actual closet, Dave. An actual closet with clothes.
Did it smell like mothballs?
It did not. That's the bad thing about it. And so like there's my stepdad had all these hats. Like he collects hats from years and years. And usually they're like, 1973, Napa parts hat or something like that. And I'm looking through there and I see this Red Man hat. And I'm like, oh my dang, this is awesome. This is the coolest hat ever. And so I snagged it. I'm like, hey, my stepdad's name is Nubby. His nickname is Nubby. And I'm like, Nubby, can I have this hat? He's like, yeah, I guess you can have it. Just don't lose it. No, this is my hat. So I wore it, and I had like literally I put it on, went out, and I had probably 20 people try to buy it off of me, try to like arm wrestle me for it. Like everybody loved this hat, and I loved it, man. It was like part of my soul. And then I take it back to Thailand. I was debating about bringing it back to Thailand, but I brought it back to Thailand. The day I flew into Bangkok, I left it in a cab, and it drove off, and I never saw it again. I literally cried. Like, talk about being a manly emotion. I cried because that was something that was there. Anyway, fast forward a few weeks later, I talked to my best friend, Matt. I'm like, hey, man, this is what happened to that hat. Oh, I was so broken up about it. For my birthday, them crackers went online, won an auction for this hat, and got it for me back. So this is like my second red man.
Probably his hat.
It probably was. Somebody snagged and then sold it.
Put it up on online auction.
But it was a pretty penny. It was not like a $20 lids hat. It was expensive. So I love this hat. This is my nostalgia hat. 1980.
It fits you
probably
perfectly.
85.
It looks like it was made for your head.
It is, man. It is. It is made for God made this red man hat in 1985 for me.
David is the only one not currently wearing a hat right now. He did not get the memo. And
we're secretly judging him for it. We're secretly and visually judging him for it.
All right, David, settle this. Go ahead, David.
I didn't feel the need to put one on because I still have hair. So I
got it. Hey, I've actually got a lot of it, but it's like coronavirus hair right now. You know what I'm saying? So it's bad. It's really bad. I'm in desperate need of a visit to a good guy-related barbershop.
So
can you guys in America, can you guys go get haircuts and stuff like that at the moment, or what's going on over there?
We can't, man. Salons and barbershops and stuff are shut down. They are not considered essential businesses, and so everybody's walking around like looking really, really rough. It's quite humorous, actually. It reminds me of that scene from I'm dating myself here, but the Batman movie with Michael Keaton back in the 80s, the one that Prince played on the soundtrack. Remember, if you ever saw it, that's exactly. If you ever saw it, the Joker like put his poison in cosmetics, and so like nobody could do anything, and they're doing the newscast. They look terrible, and that's basically what everybody looks like right now because you can't go get a haircut. Which I'm using this opportunity to grow mine all back out. Like it's longer than on the sides than it's been because I normally wear like a pretty high fade and long on top, kind of an undercut deal. But it's grown back out. I just sounded really fruity right there. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
but just in case for those. Sorry, Dave. What's that?
I was just going to say it's kind of like you preempted everything and kind of got rid of the hair before this all started.
Yeah,
exactly.
Did.
What I'm saying is, because for those that are not watching the video, for can't see Dave's head, Dave looks like he had a mental breakdown inside his house and just started like shaving half his hair. Like
Britney Spears, early 2000s.
Like he had a Britney break. That's what Dave looks like. He's like he's not wearing any pants. I'm not sure what he has on underneath there, but I'm sure he's been stuck in the house a long time.
I'm not wearing pants because they call this program Zoom. So,
you're not allowed to wear pants on Zoom.
Exactly.
So David, settle a dispute for me and John before I ask you this first important question. I'm going to ask you one not as important. Duck bill like John's wearing or flat bill like I'm wearing?
Or better known as a man's version and a 13-year-old girl's version. That's that one. Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Look, to be honest, the flat cap has never really done it for me. Like, I've always preferred a curved bill.
That's what I'm talking about,
right,
Dave.
John's celebrating. I tell you, perhaps we will put it to a vote for the guys out there. In reality, like for me, where the flat bill come from, I played baseball back in the day, and in school I played soccer, football, and basketball, and I played baseball. I was a catcher, but yeah, I was a big Baltimore Orioles fan, and before these were even popular, I would wear like an Orioles flat bill. And so when these got popular, I was like, heck yes. And so I don't know, I wear them all the time. I have some like that too, though. But I usually wear them when I fish or cut the grass.
When you're doing something manly. When you're doing something manly, you wear the manly hat. Just saying.
I think it depends on what your face is, because like for me, the flat cap just doesn't look good on me. It never has. But the curve cap obviously never looked good on John and never will.
It's okay, but it's more manly either way.
Hey,
and
man,
that's what this show's about.
My other flat bill, well, this is a baseball hat I'm wearing. Come on, you don't get any more American and manly than baseball and minor league baseball. Like,
I will say this. Baseball, everybody's like, oh, it's the national holiday, sport time, pastime, whatever, right? I think it may be 1995. See, that's the hat. That's the hat. That's bluesy.
That looks good on you.
It does, man.
Yeah.
It looks
I just
like
need a cigar.
Exactly.
And if you guys aren't watching this online, David has put on like a fedora. And the interesting thing about a fedora,
it's one I had just sitting here.
He just happened to have it prepared.
Happened to have it right.
Wearing right now, the way he's wearing it right now says, "I'm casual. I play music," but like tilt that thing down a little bit, like tilt it like more mob looking, like yeah. See, like now he's gonna break your legs with a baseball bat. Like that's the way.
I was probably gonna do that anyway. I mean.
Or a cricket bat. I don't know. I bet one of them jokers would hurt.
The reason why he's going to use a bat or a cricket bat is because Aussies can't have guns, and so the only thing that their mothers will allow them to have is a stick. And so
yeah.
I'm just
There's
saying.
a whole conversation there we could have, but
yeah, mate. Tell me Aussies don't have guns, and look at this.
He flexed on us. He brought it up.
He totally flexed on us.
Look at that right there, mate. Now tell me Aussies don't have guns, all right?
I stand corrected. I stand
corrected,
Dave. I'm sorry. I take it back. I take it back.
So David, we've been talking a bit about what you do and as a musician, and just share with folks, what is that like? Like, what does a guitarist do for a living? You're essentially living like every American musician's dream to get paid to do what you love to do for a living. So tell us a little bit about that, man.
Well, I mean, at the moment, what a guitarist does for a living is nothing. So there's that. But pre-COVID-19, I mean, man, I've been so lucky with the way my life has kind of worked out. But I mean, I put in a lot of time as a youngster into learning so many different styles of music, and it, when I got to kind of mid-20s, it all just started paying off. I started getting offers to play in different bands and different things, and I've been so lucky to just tour and play with so many amazing people. And mostly a week for me would look like I normally teach 2 or 3 days a week. I've got a bunch of great students. Some of my students are world-class students, and then, normally I'm gigging from Thursday through to Sunday night. And then Monday I just rest, and then I start the week again. And it's been pretty much that way since I was 18 years old,
So if you would just for, because, I would like to hear it. If you could, like, what's some of the name dropping things you played with? Like, drop some names on us, flex on us, just tell the people out there, flex on me, like, this is who I played with. You want, let us know who you played with. Then we'll ask another question here in a second. So if you don't mind.
I'm not a great flexer, as you saw it just previously.
No, that was a great flex. There was
some definition there. There was definition.
Yeah, you can see the difference between my jumper and my arm.
For those who are not in Australia, he's talking about his hoodie.
A hoodie, yeah.
Hoodie.
You don't call that a jumper?
No.
Jumpers are what the ladies wear here. But it's okay.
In Australia, a jumper is a hoodie or someone who's about to commit suicide.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's kind of, yeah.
We also have that term as well.
Yeah.
It was a good movie with Hayden Christensen too.
Yeah, it was his only good movie, I think.
Come on now.
Man, oh, that dude sucked. So yeah, flex on us real quick, man. Flex on us real quick with some of
Man,
your peeps.
I mean, my
And
biggest.
don't be humble and be like, oh, I didn't play with it. I don't know. I play just like flex on
I
us,
mean,
man. Show us.
most of the stuff I've done for the last kind of 5 or 6 years or 7 years, I've been in Guy Sebastian's band, which has been quite big.
Yeah.
But so through that, I mean, there's a lot of Australian artists I played for. But I'm trying to think about people you guys might know. There's
Our
Aloe
audience
Black.
is worldwide. Our audience is worldwide, man. I'm saying.
You guys know Aloe Black? Do you know Aloe Black?
L.O. Black. Let me see.
actually
Hang on.
know that name. Yeah.
I need $1. That song. Or
I Need
he's
a
the
Dollar.
guy that's saying Wake Me Up, the song with Avicii. That was a big hit. Yeah.
I actually know that song. That's on my I'm just telling the world right now without shame. That's on one of my workout playlists.
Yeah, that's him. So that singer, I've played with him a few times. He's from America, but when he came to Australia, I played for him.
Cool.
Lupe Fiasco. You guys know Lupe? Charlie?
He knows.
John.
I don't know.
Tell
I don't
me
know.
you know Lupe Fiasco, John.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't, man. Sorry. Anthony, inform me who Lupe. For those who like me who don't know Lupe, let me know who Lupe is.
It's a singer that I've heard before. I know the name.
He's a rapper. He's an American rapper, great rapper. I don't know, Australian artists. There's a bunch of different Australian artists that I've,
The biggest Australian artist you play with?
Well, because Guy is probably the biggest.
Yes, the biggest. All right. So the second biggest, Men at Work or whoever else that you
Oh yeah, I don't know. Maybe I've done stuff. I've played with Anthony Kalia, Tina Arena. At some point, we've performed with Delta Goodrum before. All these different artists. Yeah,
that's awesome, man. That's awesome,
I don't know, man.
That's dope, man.
Go ahead, John.
Sorry. No, go ahead. I was just gonna say that's cool, dude. I'm glad. That makes me happy to hear. I don't know why it makes me happy, but it does.
Well, a couple of Australian bands that I listened to when I was younger that I really loved. Midnight Oil.
Man.
I love some Midnight Oil. Correct me if I'm wrong, but is it INXS an Australian band as well?
Yeah, INXS are Australian, yeah.
Yeah, but those are two bands back in the day that and I loved Midnight Oil because when I was in the 80s, I'm a little bit older than both of you guys. I loved very politically charged music. That's part of what drew me to U2 and Midnight Oil. Beds Are Burning, that whole song and that whole video. They're just wow. Of course, if John shaved his beard, he would look like the lead singer from Midnight Oil. So
really, that must be one sexy man. Everyone's just, God, that Matt Joker. He must just have to beat people off with a stick. Just keep him off of
He does. So take us back to the world you grew up in, man. What was it like growing up? And you've already kind of shared a little bit about how you moved into that career as a guitarist. But take us back to what. And I like that you pointed out that you worked hard on this craft as a young person, and I think that's so important. Stuff doesn't just happen. Michael Jordan is a basketball player. He was and probably still is because of the hours he put in. David Tweedie is the guitarist he was because of the wrench time, if you will, he put in. Take us back to the world you grew up in. What was it like growing up? Brothers, sisters around you? Just kind of tell us what little David was like.
Well, I'll jump into my childhood, but just that you mentioned Michael Jackson, I found that recent documentary that's come out about him. I found that so inspiring, because I just saw how hard he worked. I worked hard as a young person, but I still work hard now. I've been playing guitar 6 to 8 hours a day since I've been in isolation for maybe the last month.
I may have missed something. Hang on. Sorry. Hold up. You talking about Leaving Netherland documentary?
Michael Jordan, sorry. Did I say Michael Jackson?
Oh, I was like, who? I was like, what? Wait, what? What? Like, Dave,
Sorry.
what documentary are you watching? that's a completely different. He's working too hard at something else on that one. That's a completely different.
Sorry, you mentioned Michael Jordan. Is that what
I
you were talking
did mention Michael Jordan.
Michael
I
Jordan.
said he worked hard too for all his
Whew. All right, cool. All right,
weirdness.
nice. Took me a second.
But
Took me
Dave,
off
the
there for
floor
a
is
second.
yours, my friend.
No,
Go ahead,
so I'm talking Michael Jordan. That little documentary that I saw about Michael Jordan, not
Gotcha.
Jackson. So yeah, no, that Michael Jordan. I just saw how hard he worked as someone who wanted to be the best at what he was doing, and that inspired me at the very start of this isolation time to really just work. And so at the moment, even now, as opposed to how I was as a child. Like even now, I'll practice till I feel like I'm ready to go to bed, and I keep having this thought that goes through my head that the best people are the ones that practice until they can't practice anymore, and that's when they start practicing again. So when I'm ready to go to bed and I'm still practicing and my arms are tired and my head's tired, my brain wants to go to sleep, I'll just move to a different couch, get a different guitar, and I'll start practicing again, like totally different things. And I've been that way since I was young. Since, my dad was a musician. So pretty much since I was born, all I ever wanted to do was play guitar. I remember when dad used to lead worship at church. And they always say I would never go to church unless they let me when I was a little toddler, I used to have to carry my ukulele around with me everywhere. I had like a little ukulele and I thought it was a guitar. And I would stand at the very front of the church every week, strumming the ukulele, pretending I was on stage with my dad playing.
That's fantastic.
And then dad had a rock band, when I was a kid, called Crosswise. And still some of the greatest songs. My dad was a great musician, great songwriter. And so I grew up listening to some of this music, and it just became part of our being. Me and my sister, we knew these songs from start to finish. Every lyric, every guitar solo, we could sing the guitar solos, And I remember like seeing dad playing and mum being like, "We have to go home. It's too late." And me just like absolutely going ballistic because I wanted to see dad play the gig because my dad was, like back in Tasmania at that time, like the 90s. Dad was a bit of a Christian rock star, And the songs are great, man. I still listen to them and I still go, wow, these are amazing songs. The band he had was amazing. And so it was kind of inevitable for me to end up playing music. I mean, it's just all I ever wanted to do. I loved sport. I was a pretty good soccer player. I was a pretty good gymnast, but music became something that just totally engulfed my entire life. Like I would hear something on the radio on the way home and I'd run to my bedroom and be like, I want to figure out how to play what I just heard. And from memory, I'd just sit there and go, and I wouldn't leave my room till I figured out how to play it. So it was always just like a lifelong obsession. It's not a gift. I don't like it when people say music talent is a gift. It's something that you just work more at than other people do, like I don't. There's this great quote from Wes Montgomery, one of my favorite guitarists. Let me get this right. He says, if someone came to your house and fixed your TV when it was broken, would you say that they're gifted, or would you say that they've learned how to fix your TV?
Oh wow, that's good.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel about music. It's not that anyone's more gifted than anyone else. It's just that some people have learned how to do it and learned more than other people. You don't get born with music. You don't. I got lucky that I was around it my whole childhood, but I think it's something that anyone can do, and anyone can do better than anyone else if they put in more time than the other people.
Wow.
Do you think though that like there are certain people who are just kind of more artistically inclined that would kind of be drawn to that more, or what do you like? This in your own experience in that? What do you think?
I do. I think there are more people that are artistically inclined, but it's not genetic or anything like that. It's based upon what they feel as like what they feel means something to them. So as I was growing up, I would hear these songs and I would go, that reminds me of things that I heard when I was a child, and these memories and these emotions kept coming back. So there are certain things that I hear that just they make me emotional, and it's not that I'm inclined towards music. It's that that was such a huge part of my upbringing.
Yeah. Do you
I
think
don't
like
think anyone's more inclined?
do you like kind of hit on something there? It's kind of interesting. The idea that how much music impacts your emotions, as you're playing. Like I know when I'm if I'm at a concert or if I'm listening to a song or if I'm watching a movie with a soundtrack in it or whatever, and that emotion hits us as an audience, as somebody who's watching it. Does that ever hit you while you're playing it? Like you just get like sucked into what you're playing because like does that ever happen to you? Like you get pulled in emotionally the same way maybe like an audience member was. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally does. I still tend to have the opinion that, I mean, this is just my opinion now, that it's based on something that you've heard in the past, which is connected to an emotion. Right. So, and I remember discussing this with someone and trying to argue my point. And I thought, remember nearly every second 90s song or late 90s, 2000 song had
the best year.
Had this kind of chord progression, right?
Yeah.
Closing time, baby.
Now think about the people that were writing those songs, right? Now think about this. The can you feel the love tonight?
Wow.
That was the most emotional moment of all of our childhood, wasn't it?
Lion King throws some stuff out, yeah.
Yeah, but when Simba fell in love, it was to that chord progression.
You know, when my son was born, I actually held him up like that, no kidding, and like sang Circle of Life. I'm not even joking. I really did that. So
yeah. But if you think about the connection that we all had with that chord progression, right?
Yeah.
And then suddenly, 10 to 15 years later, every second song is being written with that chord progression. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a connection-based thing. So when we heard other songs written with that same sound, and we really connected to it. We were like, oh, there's something in that makes me feel emotional. How many church songs have you heard with that chord progression?
Oh, absolutely. I think you, and if you've listened to other podcasts, you know, I'm a worship leader. That's one of the things I do. Actually, I promise I'm not being weird about it, but like that's actually what my master's is in. My master's is in worship and theology, and you have solved a mystery that I feel like has plagued us. We've been trying to figure out for a while. Like we even joke about it, how like so many modern worship songs sound like U2. They do. They have that. But that's why you've nailed it, because it taps into something in our collective psyche, I guess, from back in the day that got
emotionally
us,
touching.
you know, it was an emotional connection, and I think that's important. Guys, we're not, and this is just kind of a growth moment here for the dudes listening. We are emotional beings. We're created in the image of God, and the Lord is a warrior, but he's also the one who created emotion. And it is totally cool and manly to embrace emotion. I was dead serious when my son was born. I held him up and I sang Circle of Life. Like I was like, just seriously, like it was an emotional moment for me. I was like holding my little man up and singing. And I think that, gosh, music is such a powerful tool to just tap into those emotions. Dang, David, that was good, man.
So do you want a more modern example?
Yes.
This is real, man. This is a real thing, and it's something that I want to delve more into. But so, have you heard that new song that everyone wants to sing? Is the song called "The Blessing"? Do you know that? I'll show you.
All right, rock it out, live. You hear it first here on the Guy Stuff podcast.
This is just my observations, so of what I hear. Right. There's that song, "The Blessing." It goes, "The Lord bless you and keep you, make His face shine upon you, be gracious to you. Lord, turn His face toward you and give you peace." Do you recognize that? That song has basically taken over worship leaders all around the world, right? At the moment, it's a new song. Now, listen to a Coldplay song from 10 years ago. Oh no, I don't know the words. On your face, oh no no, oh no no, oh no no, on your face now. Do you know that? Do you recognize that one?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Now listen, 10 years later, this song called "The Blessing" comes out and everyone's going bang, bang, bang. This song connects to them. They're feeling these emotions. Now, the melody and the chords are exactly the same as that Coldplay song that hit everyone from 10 years ago. You remember that Coldplay song had that guitar solo, that's just weird, like, but it was such an emotional moment. And now if you compare the melodies of those two songs and the chord progression, it's almost the same song. It's almost exactly the same. So people are hearing this song, "The Blessing," and they're connecting it to emotion they heard 10 years ago when they were listening to this Coldplay song, and it's crazy how it all works, man. But mostly the musical connection to things is based around what you remember from an emotional connection you had with something a long time ago.
That's brilliant.
So with that actually answers maybe hit on another question. You can on this, another observation, another weird thing I've always wondered. I can't remember what happened 30 minutes ago, but I can remember every word to every song I've ever heard in the 90s. Like I have a playlist. I know every single word to it, but I can't tell you what I did 35 minutes ago. So maybe it's that connection, like you said, that emotional connection to a time in my life that's nostalgic, that actually allows me to remember those things. So that kind of hit on some of that, what you're trying to talk about, maybe?
Yeah, well, music has a connection to it actually enters your brain a different way than everything else does. So what musical therapists are starting to discover is that when they play a piece of music from a time when someone who's going through dementia cannot remember anything that's happening with their life, or they can't remember their own children.
Yeah.
If they play them a piece of music from a period of their life, that sparks all the memories because it enters through the back of the brain, and that sparks all these memories that they cannot remember normally. So the musical therapists are trying to get everyone in dementia homes before they get too far into dementia to write down all the song, so tell me a song that reminds you of your 20s, tell me a song that reminds you of your 30s, tell me a song that reminds you of your 40s. Because the music actually triggers a memory emotion in your brain that actually seeing visual things. So even seeing your own child, you won't remember them.
Yeah.
But if you play a song that you might have been your kid's favorite song when your kid was 5 years old, that will bring back the memory of who your child was.
Wow.
It's really interesting, man.
That's amazing.
It's all
So guys, as we're getting older, let's start listening to some music so we can remember our kids when we all got, old timers disease and stuff, we can actually remember stuff.
So does that mean I'm going to be in a restaurant one day, listening to Nirvana?
Exactly.
and
Turn the lights out. Oh, hey, honey, it's good to see you back.
Brilliant song, actually. Gosh, that's really good, man. This is you won't hear this kind of stuff on any other podcast. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man.
That's
Yeah.
that's really, really good, and it explains a lot too. Like, I mean, being real, like a lot of guys listening to this are probably in my age bracket, and we love our 80s music. Like, we love our 80s music, but what that's doing is taking us back to kind of the time when life was simpler. I guess.
Yeah.
I think a lot of guys, if we're honest, we really long for. It's not that we want to duck our responsibilities. It shouldn't be. It better not be. You listen to this podcast, because that's not what we're about. But it takes us back to a simpler time when, we did not feel like we had the weight of the world on us as fathers and husbands and providers, and we're able to, in a sense, escape that for just a little bit.
That's one thing that even today I was actually thinking about this. It's like this nostalgia that I think lots and lots of people are chasing to not to just to kind of remember back, but to recreate a point in time in their life. Like, that's why you have so many people trying to buy stuff from their childhood, and they're literally trying to recreate that moment that will never happen. Like, you can never, I just started realizing you can never recreate that. You can remember back fondly on it, but the only thing that you really can truly create is the now, the future, and the now with your family, with your kids. That's the important thing. And that's, for me, today, that actually hit as I was kind of thinking through this and just thinking back on this nostalgia idea of, wanting to buy, like, stuff from the 80s. Like, I got this stupid 80s chair and things like that, because it reminds me of my childhood. But to try to recreate that is a very fleeting, very empty. It's dangerous and empty. And I think that's why maybe even like you go to affairs where you see these guys.
Bingo.
These guys go back and find especially when Facebook popped up, finding their old flames in high school and trying to relive that, and it's empty. It's because they're trying to recreate something in their life instead of going, let me be present now and make the memories that are going to be lasting long into the future, and making memories for my kids, so my kids can look back and go, man, that was great, and making stuff for them. And so that's just hit me today about really not trying to live in the past.
It's good to it's good to remember, in a sense. Like, one of the things we've done in our house, our kids love 80s music, because they love everything we grew up listening to, because we've shared a lot of that with them. But I think you've hit on something super, super important that we all need to be cognizant of as men. You have to live for the future and your role as a provider, and really in the positive sense of the word. And somebody may take my words and try to twist them, but I think if you're listening to this, you know what I'm trying to say, as a patriarch of your family. For me personally,
you said the patriarchy. You part of the oppression.
Well, and here's what I mean by that. And I'll tell you, without any kind of qualms, in our household, we have a system, and this is what we've arrived at because of my personality, and I'll talk more about that at a later point. Any big decision that's made is a consensus. It's not like, well, this is what we're going to do. It is not a vote. It's consensus. It's like me and my wife, Sherry, we've got to agree on it 100%. If one of us does not feel good about it, we do not do it. Because what I learned is God gives her intuition that this moron does not have. And so if she doesn't have good feelings about something, I'm like, okay, honey, I hear you. The Holy Spirit's talking to you. Let's not do that. But as a father, as I don't have grandkids yet, but every single thing I'm doing every single day, I'm thinking about my grandkids and my great grandkids. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm pursuing different business interests, and I talked the day before the show. I'm an author. Everything I do, I'm thinking forward. Like, what can I do today that will prepare the future for my kids and my grandkids and my great grandkids? So we have to be careful. It's okay to look back and say, that was nice, but this moment, this is where it's at.
That's beautiful, man.
And so in that, so Dave, when you're thinking about, like, right now, what music do you think is defining this moment? Because every ton of moments is connected with it. So what do you see as somebody who understands what non-sexual music is? Like
that's our word. John created that non-sexual music.
Non-sexual music.
Does not suck.
What do you see as defining this moment in time? Even COVID, what do you think is defining the moment in time right now?
Well, man, I might not be the best person to ask that question because I tend to listen to the older music, you know, like. But I think that this producer-based music, like this loop-based producer music that's coming out at the moment, this is our time in music.
Really?
And this is what our kids are going to grow up and have a connection to this music the same way we have a connection to the stuff Creed or, you know, the stuff that was going around when we were young, you know, that this is actually what the kids of our generation are going to grow up listening to. And then that's what they're going to feel a connection to, whether we like it or not. It's weird. We don't understand it, but
terrifying, actually.
Yeah.
But like so one of the things that I'm trying to do, because I have 4 girls and 2 boys, and so my struggle is trying to connect with them. Like my boys, I can connect with fairly easy. My girls is hard to connect with, especially on a musical sense, because it's such a different type of understanding. But trying to be open to that, like it says, this highly produced music that's not even played by a musician. It's just comprised by computer. How would you, if say you were a father right now, how would you, what would be something or some group or something that you could say could bridge that gap? Do you know of anything that could bridge that gap between
like a modern band?
Yeah, like a modern band. Like even like I tell you, one of the things that me and my daughter have bonded over, both my older daughters, is bonded over Dave Tweedie. You know why? Because they love freaking Guy Sebastian. And so I went, hey, Dad's pretty cool. Dad knows his guitarist. And so they were like, ooh, yeah. And so I got some dad points. And so we listened to Guy Sebastian music together a little bit. And not saying that Guy is highly produced, because you're his guitarist that can freaking play the crap out of a guitar. But like, what could you say could a dad out there, could a older guy, a guy who's trying to connect maybe with his grandkids or even with his nieces or nephews, what would be some music or something that they could possibly connect with? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Guy's stuff is quite produced, studio produced. But I mean, what, in 6 or 7 years or however long it's been, I've only played on maybe 3 or 4 of his tracks. So most of his stuff is studio based stuff, you know. So even that is like, you know, you're not hearing. I mean, I grew up in the genre where every song had a guitar solo in it.
Yeah,
you guys remember that?
Exactly.
Every single song, instead of having a bridge, just had a guitar solo, and then it went back to the chorus, and then it ended. You know, like those days are. It's unfortunate to grow up in that time thinking guitar is so important, and then work professionally as a musician in a time that is so, like, guitar is so.
He's been replaced by GarageBand.
Good Guy has done tours without guitar in it. You know, like
really,
it's like stuff. I mean, he can play every instrument. The guy's an amazing musician.
Yeah.
But there was a tour that I wasn't able to do, and instead of getting a replacement guitarist, he just did the tour without guitar.
Wow.
So he just played. I think he played most of the parts himself.
Wow.
So it's like guitar just hasn't been one of those things. But there are some things, right? There's a guy called Leon Bridges.
Okay.
Do you guys know Leon Bridges?
I do not. You've stumped me on that one.
And Chris Stapleton.
Oh yeah, Chris Stapleton. That's my boy, man. You just spoke to my heart. You just spoke to my heart. So
that in that kind of genre, like they're both kind of singing soul music, but it's not it's kind of soul, but it's not really soul.
Hmm.
The guitar is still really prominent and really important there, and you know, every instrument is so important in those. Music like Chris Stapleton could not be produced without a band.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It just couldn't. And he writes some beautiful lyrics, man. He's got this song called Daddy Don't Pray Anymore.
Yeah.
Have you heard that?
Yeah. Actually, you told me about that song. I never heard it. And you told me about it. And I went like, let me go look at this. I was like, oh, man, this is an amazing song. And he wrote that song, I think, I watched the interview with him. He wrote that song in like 30 minutes. Like sat down, waiting for his girlfriend at the time, his wife, to get ready to go on a date, and just went and wrote this song out about Daddy Don't Pray Anymore. And it's
That's
beautiful
the most
song.
beautiful lyrics to a song like that I've heard in years and years and years. Yeah. But otherwise, I encourage my students who are stuck in that zone. I actually encourage them to get back into the old music. So learn about Paul McCartney. Learn who he is. Learn his songs, his songwriting stuff. There's a lot of things where you can watch Paul McCartney talking about how he wrote songs. And to me, I know that's not my generation, that's my dad's generation, but Paul McCartney is one of the greatest songwriters of all time. Look at a song like Yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Like Yesterday's got to be one of the most beautiful.
Oh, absolutely. It's amazing to this day.
Beautiful melodies. That's
Do you remember when back when 93, 94, when Anthology came out, when the whole Beatles anthology dropped? Remember, you guys remember that?
I would have been only 4 years old. So.
I was in college.
So I was about 10. I was 13, 14 years old when it dropped. And I remember my cousin, who was a couple of years older than me, just like, I didn't know I knew who the Beatles were, but I didn't really listen to their stuff. And man, I remember he got it because he was like, man, he's got some good music on it. I remember we'd listen to that. I would listen to that thing over and over and over. Eleanor Rigby was one of the songs that just hit me. I was like,
a good song.
Wow, you know, this
so unbelievable.
Yeah, you're like, wow, this is like so good. And even that Hey Jude, I remember listening to Hey Jude.
Another good song.
And it was a great song, but what got me, because I used to love Aerosmith, and I started hearing Hey Jude, and that ending part of Hey Jude where Paul McCartney just kind of starts getting that raspy, like growl, and I was like, that's freaking where Steven Tyler stole that from, was freaking, you know, Paul McCartney at the end of Hey Jude, just, you know, slamming it out.
Well, there's really and truly, and in Ecclesiastes it says there's nothing new under the sun. And music is one of those places where that is so very true. I mean the rock and like Dave, I'm sure at a whole nother level, but you know, I taught guitar, and I always had my students, I would give them the history, for example, of rock music. I even did this when I was a school teacher. You don't get rock music without the blues. You know, that whole genre, the blues is really the granddaddy of rock music, what we call country music, jazz music. It's like literally the great grandfather of all these amazing genres. And there's so many like spiritual parallels here. Two things real quick, and I'm going to ask you a question, Dave. I'll hit this and I'll jump back. Just a thought I had. Every generation learns from the generation before. And music is one of those places where that's probably the most prevalent, if you look at it. You know, like you're talking about the impact the Beatles had on Aerosmith, and the impact a band like Led Zeppelin had on Metallica, and all these different things. And you know, our kids, the people that we have a responsibility to mentor, they're looking, they're listening, they're learning. And musically speaking, whether you hit on something, both of you guys, it's important to whatever gaps there are between us and our children to bridge those gaps. And it is our responsibility. You know, I grew up like you. I grew up in a household with a musician. My dad bought me my first guitar when I was 3 years old. I got a picture of me with that thing slung around my neck. In fact, up here, in my home office, I've got one of his records framed, and then right below it, the CD my wife and I made with our band back in the early 2000s. They're right there hanging together. But I was a grown man before he and I played together. I literally, like, I learned to play guitar completely divorced of him. He would be down the hall playing old country and bluegrass, which I at the time hated. And I would be in my room learning to play, Metallica, Fade to Black. And we never came together on that. And one of the things I've really tried to work hard at, and I'm not always perfect at it, but like I have a 21-year-old son and a 17-year-old daughter. He's easy because you'll walk by his room and he's listening to freaking Robert Johnson. Okay. I mean, like, that's impressive. But my beautiful 17-year-old daughter, there were points where I'd be riding around town jamming out to Selena Gomez to make that connection.
Yeah.
So it's important for us to bridge those gaps. It's extremely important. And so I'll let you speak to that if you will, Dave, and then I got a question for you.
Well, yeah, man. I mean, I'll get to your question in a sec, but I mean, I connect to heaps of different music, man. Like sometimes I find myself listening to stuff that I never thought I would listen to. Like there's a Beyonce song called Halo. That I think that is such a great song.
Yeah.
And I can listen to that all the time. Every year, right? I start a folder in my phone called, so one will be 2019 listening, 2020 listening. Every year I start a folder, and when I hear a song that really connects with me, I put it into that folder. So I can go back through the last 10 years worth of stuff that I've heard that really connected with me and have a listen to it. And some of it's really old stuff, some of it's new stuff, but it's just it's a complete, and it really surprises me to go back through stuff that I thought I would never like and actually really connect with stuff and artists that I thought I will hate everything this artist ever puts out. And then suddenly they put out a song that I go, oh, that's amazing. So I only put music into two categories, man, just good and bad. I don't put it into classical, jazz, rock, pop. I just put music in two categories, just good music and bad music. That's all I do, yeah. So ask your question.
What was your experience of coming to know Jesus?
Well, I in a funny kind of way, I just never really had a choice about it as a kid.
Yeah.
Like my parents were pastors. When I was still living in Tasmania, my parents were youth leaders, and then Dad got an offer to run a church up in Melbourne, and then all of a sudden I was the pastor's kid for I was the pastor's kid for the next 20 years. And spiritually it has a weird effect on you being that kid, but I mean it worked out in some ways, like as in musically, like Dad would be like, we don't have a piano player next week, learn to play these songs on piano. And I'd never touched a piano before in my life. So I ended up playing piano and drums in the church band for the next 20 years, and I never played guitar in church, really, ever.
Yeah. Wow.
But spiritually, I mean, it was a weird. I mean, I definitely had my ups and downs, man, and I still go through the ups and downs. I don't know if you guys do as well, but I definitely.
Yes.
No, I'm always up, man. I'm always up.
I was born asking the question why. So yes. Yeah. I would say that ups and downs have indeed been a part of my story, and some really downs at certain points.
Yeah. And that's the question I do have there for you, Dave. Like as you're transitioning, so you're baptized in the church from day one, right? You're just in Christian music. You're in church. You're playing in church. That's where you're going, and then you make this transition to the secular side of music. What did that look like? How did that hurt your walk? Did it kind of strengthen your walk? Or what was some of your experience as you made that transition over because you see a lot of like even musicians, singers that were that make that transition from contemporary Christian to being a secular solo artist or whatever, and you see they just run from their faith. A lot of them. You can see.
Well, Katy Perry is a good example.
Exactly.
I mean,
exactly.
She's actually a really. People may hate on me for this, but it is what it is. As a musician, you recognize talent. Katie's an incredibly talented musician, and really, if you watch American Idol, she's a nice person. Katie, I think you're a nice person, but but like you, her parents are both pastors, and for me, at times I see her even on camera, and if I don't think you can see it unless you're a believer, I see her struggling to reconcile what she knows to be true and this image that she has to personify in order to do her job. I mean, she's even got a Jesus tattoo on her wrist that I've seen her like sort of try to cover in interviews before when the camera pans to it. And I see that struggle in her. And sometimes I just want to say, Katie, let go. Just
come on home.
Come
home,
back
Katie.
into the light. Just come back into the light. Even Anakin Skywalker at the end step back into the light. So, just saying. But Dave, over to you.
Well, all right. If you want me to get deep here,
Yeah,
we like deep. I mean, we wade in deepness all the time. But,
all right. So my dad, right, who's been my the best influence on my life, pretty much that anyone could ever ask for. I'm not one of those guys who goes, I wish I had a better upbringing, right? I literally, I look back and go, I had the best upbringing anyone could ever ask for. My parents are perfect. My dad is the best role model you could ever have. So his dad, he used to take my dad to church because he was sleeping with the Sunday school teacher. So that my both sides of the family come from a long line of alcoholic, self-destructive people that it goes further. My dad, when he had me and my sister, he wanted to stop that, right? So his biggest thing was like, I don't want my kids to grow up the way I grew up or the way that my parents grew up. So he stopped drinking. He stopped everything. He was a muso. He was a touring muso, but he didn't drink. The first drink he had was when I was 18 or something like that. When me and my sister were both 18, he decided he was allowed to have a drink again.
Wow.
So that, I mean, talk about role models, like there, but still I found it so difficult. Yeah. When I first got to the highest level of music in the Australian country was the first time I'd ever done drugs or anything like that.
Yeah.
And it's because I'm playing with people that are 20 years older than me, and I see these guys as my peers and my role models and stuff, and suddenly they're putting drugs up my nose, or they're putting alcohol down my throat, or it was really hard, man. Like, it's still something that still I still struggle with, you know.
Yeah.
But it's to this point, like I've made it through, and I try all the time to just not fall into that world. It's a really dark world. Like a lot of those top musos that you guys talk about in different bands and things like that, those guys are depressed.
Yeah.
They're suicidal, depressed, they're drug addicts, they're alcoholics. And even in this country, the best musos in this country are some of my best friends, right? And they're still the same. They might be, we might be making a lot of money touring with good artists and stuff like that. But everyone is still going through this slippery slide of there's so much drugs and alcohol in the world that we live in and things like that. It's really hard, man. And it's definitely, like, I'm not going to lie, it's something that I've definitely struggled with. And it's definitely been like it's been a journey. I lost my wife because I was drinking too much at the time. And I was touring and it was just like, it's just something that until I started going to church again, it was something that really just had a hold of my life. Was like, I don't know, something about that world makes you feel like you're in a bit of a bubble.
Yeah.
When you're touring and there's not hundreds, but thousands and thousands of people every night wanting to meet you and talk to you, and then suddenly you feel like you're in a bubble, and then you come back home and life just seems really hard again. It's something that everyone has to deal with, and some people deal with it and some people don't. So I think
that's one thing.
Really dangerous industry.
That's one thing I was just thinking. Like a lot of, I think of us guys, go back to that nostalgia or that picture of what success would look like, and I mean everybody wants to be a rock star, right? Everybody wants to be that. And it, like you said, just from your testimony and a lot of other guys that I've known in the music industry, they have that same idea of like when they've reached there, it's empty. It feels good. I mean, it's like amazing when you're on stage and you got thousands of people just screaming and all this stuff, but you have to walk off that stage and you walk back and it's not there anymore. It's just an empty thing, I think. And so that has to be hard, I think, that to deal with that. But also, it's good for us to hear that, to know that it's what you think somebody else is having is not exactly what you think it is. Like the success that they have.
100%, man. And this is why I, as a music teacher, right, I've got about 30 students every week that I teach, and a lot of it is more of a mentorship than a teaching thing,
Yeah,
definitely.
But I really struggled to push them in the direction that I went in, because like there's a part of me that goes, if I could take it all back, I want to be a tradie and just live a normal life, and because this music life has cost me so much, but at the same time, I've been in isolation for the last 4 weeks, 5 weeks maybe. And if I didn't play music, I would have gone completely insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Like music is the one thing right now. Like I can sit at the piano and play for a little while and sing, and just I'll play old worship songs like "Power of Your Love," those songs. You know that.
Yeah.
And I'll just sit there and play that song, and it'll release any anxiety or anything I'm feeling inside my body at the same time. So that's why I still keep passing on the music thing. Is because it's a release. And if you start thinking that music is something that you use to show off to people so that thousands of people will watch you, then that's when you've lost the point of playing an instrument.
Yeah.
Right? The point of playing an instrument is that I can sit here and I can soothe myself from any anxiety or any depression I'm feeling right now. If I pick up my guitar and play for a couple of hours, I'll go to sleep feeling amazing.
Totally.
And that's someone once asked me, why do sportsmen and musicians not really get along? Like footy players here in Australia and musicians just are like total. It's like putting two batteries that together.
The positive together.
Two positives together. Yeah, it's because music releases emotion, and sport creates emotion. So those sportsmen, they get off the field and they're so hyped up with emotion, they need somewhere to release it. Whereas musicians, when I touch my guitar, I'm releasing what I'm feeling inside. It doesn't matter if there's no one around. If I sit here and play for 2 hours, I get up and I feel better from whatever I'm feeling. It's an amazing thing, man. And that's why I continue to teach the kids, even though I know how hard the music scene is and how destructive it can be to your life.
Yeah.
It's such an amazing thing to feel. It's an amazing feeling.
Yeah.
But David, thank you for taking us into that, man. Just really pulling the curtain back on, what has transpired in your life. And I know John and I, we jokingly say it, but like part of the reason we do this is because we want guys to learn from the areas that we've struggled in. And, if you're listening to this out there and you're dealing with something, because there's all kinds of ways to deal with substance abuse. There's alcohol, there's drugs, but there's other ways, other things we use as substance. Men are people always go to porn, but there's other stuff in porn. Your work can become substance abuse. If anything you're doing it to kind of fill that void rather than allowing Jesus to fill that void like he's supposed to. I want to encourage you to reach out to us. We got friends who are involved in counseling. We can help connect you with people that can help you. And you've hit on something. As a musician myself, obviously not to your level, not even like we're not even in the same zip code, right? You're like New York, I'm like Mayberry, but it's
that's an American reference, there, Dave.
Yeah. But I've seen in my own life how music is a release. I joke about writing my first songs when I was a young teenager, but when I got serious about songwriting, my wife and I, we lost our first child out of miscarriage, and that's how I dealt with it. I wrote a song about it, and then all of a sudden kind of the floodgates opened, and I started to write a lot more. And it's definitely a place to pour your emotion into. And I think men, you don't have to be a musician. We all need a place where we can kind of a safe place to positively put those feelings into positively. I think really, John, that's why a lot of guys are attracted to like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and the UFC and things like that. I'm this weird dichotomy of, I like sports. I love sports. I do martial arts. I've played soccer. I coached, but I also love music just as much. Most people don't realize that, like, if I had to choose, if you backed me into a corner and said, Anthony, you can only do one thing, I would only do music, because there's nothing to me that does for me what that does.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, man.
I think that's one thing that, like I said, that God created. God's creative, and this is like music tends to be a creative outlet. Like it's a creativity, and we all have certain creativity gifts that God's given us, right? Certain ways, whether it's mechanics or whether building cars or painting or music or whatever. But I think like Dave said, a lot of times that can be our idol. That if Satan comes in and takes that beautiful thing that God's given us and twists it and just perverts it a little bit and says, God, how do I use this to help people? How do I use this to uplift God? Now, and Satan goes in and says, how do I use this to make it about you? How can you receive all the praise and you can have people come and just lavish stuff on you? And I think that's the twist. And Satan does it with sex. He says, take something that's beautiful from God and he twists it and he makes it about something that it's not. And he perverts it. And I think that's what, there's an old adage, that Satan was the choir director of heaven, kind of thing. Is there's and because there's biblical evidence to support that he was the worship leader. So we've basically been dealing all of human history with a very angry, displaced worship leader, which most churches have. Most churches have.
Here's something interesting. The first point of mental illness in the Bible, right? Can you think about that?
Yes, with Saul.
So
the first musical therapist ever, they called David to come and they called the only person they knew who could play music to come and heal Saul.
Yeah.
That is so powerful, man. I'm named after him.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
But that he's the first musical therapist in the history of the world. But when they first discovered mental illness, they called a musician to come and help him. Like, that's amazing, man.
Yeah, that's definitely a gift from God.
And
like music is a gift from God. Yeah,
he became the king.
And he's a warrior. And I think that John and I talk about this a lot. It's important. There's a lot of negative stereotypes that surround being a man, whether you live down under or you live in down east North Carolina, or if you live in Spain. Everywhere has their idea, a negative aspect of what being a man is, and I largely personally believe God created us to be very balanced. beings. We should be warriors like David, I feel like, and ready to defend the weak. But we need to be willing to embrace beauty, and God created us for that as well. I feel like there's a lot of biblical evidence for that, and you just really nailed it on the head. This is the same guy who killed Goliath with one shot, and yes, God directed that, and God was involved there. But what a lot of people historically don't understand, this wasn't a slingshot like just you buy at the local dime store. Slingshots were a real weapon for that time period. When armies would go out and line up against each other, you would see a group of guys use the slingshots. In fact, the gun is based on the slingshot. They were just trying to come up with a more high-tech way to throw things. And so, it's this interesting. David is probably, we've talked about him before on other podcasts, I think, but he is probably the prototype, I think, for what most men are, because guys who want to pursue Jesus, so often, we struggle with the same things that he struggled with. We may not have murdered anybody by proxy or had adultery with our one of our military members' wives, but if somebody was to pull the curtain back on our thought life or check our internet history, we got nothing in the world to point a finger at David about.
Yep.
I've got a little treat for you. Hang on, let me show you something.
Let me see it. Is it your internet history? Is it a copy of your internet history?
For our friends who are just
when I was traveling through Africa, this is what they reckon the original harp that David played. Sorry, I haven't. There's a couple of strings hanging off it. This is what they reckon the original harp looked like.
That's amazing.
Can you see that?
Wow.
Yes.
Hey, screenshot this.
Yeah, sorry for anyone who's not watching, who's just listening, but I'm showing a little.
You're going to have to go to our YouTube page and see this.
Yeah, so that's what they reckon David was sitting and playing when he wrote the Psalms.
Man.
This beautiful instrument here. I had to buy one when I was over there. I was like,
heck yeah. Where'd you get this? Where did you find that at?
That was in Uganda.
Wow, okay. And that's for all other English speakers, that's Uganda. That's the saying. That's like
that is located on the continent of Africa. For our friends who are geographically challenged.
Yes, that's the really big thing under Europe. Yeah.
It looks like an elephant.
Yeah, like a really big elephant. That's awesome. That is gorgeous.
When he was sitting and writing and singing those Psalms, and when they called him to attend to Saul because Saul was struggling for mental health, he would have been playing something like that, just like a 6-string, 7-string like harp. Isn't that just amazing?
It's amazing.
That actually, man, it helps me understand, because like when you hear the story of David playing the harp, you think of like this little, little cherub,
It's Greek.
Yeah, this weird, almost, metrosexual dude with a, leotard on, like playing this thing. You go, that is like, when I see that, I'm like, that's manly. That was good. Like
that's a manly instrument. You could kill somebody with that and play.
That's good, man. That restores my vision of David. Thank you, Dave, for showing us that. Tell me that strengthened my faith, brother. Thank you.
That's pretty David, amazing, man.
You wow, so many amazing places you've taken us in this conversation with you today, and this part of what we want to do on this podcast is bring different perspectives, different types of men, so you can hear from them. And I feel like there's a lot that we can all learn from David's experiences and how he connects with God through music, and how he even uses it, to be out there as his representative. Yeah. And again, I want to encourage you guys. David shared a lot of really pretty big stuff. I mean, it probably wasn't easy to share, and I think that is something we can learn from as well. We need to. You don't have to like hold all this stuff and not share. You need to be willing and free to just be honest about what you're struggling with. All kinds of sin thrive in darkness. whether it's sexual addiction, drug addiction, anger, coercive control, whatever it is, it thrives in silence. And so I want to challenge you guys today to just be willing to talk. You need men around you, and I'm sure we didn't take time to talk about it, but I would wager a guess that David has had people in his life, like you mentioned, his father, who were kind of go-to people to help him walk through that, to deal with that struggle. And I appreciate the fact that you were honest enough to say, yeah, this is still a struggle. I'll share this about myself, and I'm going to share it in a later podcast. My drug was anger. Anger is a very powerful drug. People grossly underestimate the power of anger to a man. I don't want to take a lot of time to get into it because we're going to do it at a later date. But I every day, man, the Holy Spirit has, I have to be in step with Jesus every single day. And the Holy Spirit, you have to decide when I wake up, is the Holy Spirit going to control Anthony, or is Anthony's flesh going to control Anthony? And so whether it's drugs or anger or porn or whatever a person may be dealing with, that's the decision every single one of us dudes has to make every day. I'm going to throw it over to you, John, and then David, once John's done, brother, if you would just bless us by playing us a little something, man, to wrap things up. John, you got the last word.
Yeah, brother. That's the thing. Like, we always want to drive this back to is like finding your tribe, but also finding that in your local church. That's what you're there for, right? That's where you're gonna find community. You're gonna find accountability. You're gonna find that ability to create those relationships, to be honest and open. And so we would just find a local body that you fit in, that preaches the word, that is faithful to God's teaching, to God's word, and is going to draw you closer to Him, and also closer to your fellow brothers that are struggling just as much as you are. And also, just in case, this is a shameless plug for my new band that's going to come out here soon when Dave comes over to Thailand and hangs out with me. We're gonna, it's John and Brian in the Mississippi Mud Daubers. We're gonna be Dave's gonna be our guitarist, and so that's what I mean.
If we're ever allowed to travel again.
If you're allowed to travel again, and if he goes through the audition processes and actually, gets selected,
background check is cleared and all that. Yeah.
I mean, he has to do a casting between me and a couple other guys, and so before he gets in the band, you know what I'm saying?
That sounds scary.
We have high standards. We have high standards and some low morals, and so we need to make sure that Dave fits in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Also, I'll play a little something. It's very unrehearsed and probably gonna be full of mistakes. But one thing I just will say on that point is that healing never happened for me until I became honest about the problems that I had in my life. So until I went to someone like my father and told him everything that was going on with my life, nothing was ever going to get better. Everything kept going down. So anyone who is going through any of that stuff, it's so important to be honest about it with someone that you trust, and then you can start going upwards. I think that's probably the most important thing, is that you have to be honest, not only to yourself, but to someone else who can help you. I think that's really important.
That's good. That was amazing. I can't think of
Oh.
a better hymn to end our time with David Tweedie together. David, before we go, man, if people want to connect with you and your music online, because I know you've got some stuff out there. If they want to connect with you, how can people connect with you?
And Facebook, I pretty much add anyone who puts friend requests, except
I
for
can attest that he added me, so he'll add anybody.
Facebook or my Instagram is the _Tweedman, TWEEDMAN. I put up video like once a year of me playing a hymn. So
It's amazing stuff. Like literally, like hearing his like this stuff he's put out is, oh man, it's just like what he's heard, but it's 10 times better, man. So that's,
I mean, that was an amazing moment.
Yeah, brother.
It's a bit unrehearsed, but the old fingers are a little cold.
That's beautiful, man.
Well, thank you guys for being with us on another episode of Guy Schtuff with our good friend David Tweedie from the land down under, where they eat Vegemite and all that fun stuff. We'll have to talk about that another day. We'll have to have him back. But David, thanks for being with us, man.
Yeah, man. Great to see you, boys.
You too, man. God bless, and we'll see y'all next time.